known as Stonehenge. This imposing monument has dominated the imagination of archaeologists and visitors for centuries.
Archaeologists have spent their lives trying to solve the mystery of the Salisbury Plain, but it took a machine to finally break the code. Artificial intelligence has just revealed the true purpose of Stonehenge, and the findings are scaring the people who study the past. The computer found that the stones were placed with a level of accuracy that requires high-level math.
Actually, Stonehenge is aligned with the sun.
If you stand in the right place, the space between the central megalith perfectly frames the sun's movement on 2 days of the year.
For starters, the builders knew things about the moon and sound that were supposedly not discovered for another 2,000 years. The crazy part is that the oldest stones are actually the most perfect ones. The terrifying truth machines found in England. Stonehenge sits on the Salisbury Plain, about 88 miles southwest of London. When researchers first began systematic studies in the early 20th century, they uncovered something that fundamentally should not exist. This massive stone circle was built around 2,500 years before the Common Era. To put that in perspective, this was built before the Great Pyramids were finished, and before humanity had most of what is considered basic technology. According to every model of human development, this level of coordination and engineering was physically impossible. The site consists of a circular arrangement of massive stones, with some weighing up to 30 tons. These are not just rough rocks, they are precisely shaped blocks. Some stand 30 feet tall and weigh 25 tons each. The blue stones in the inner circle weigh 4 tons and were moved from Wales, which is 150 miles away. The old story says that farmers used stone hammers to shape these and move them on log rollers. But here is the catch. Even with modern cranes, moving a 25-ton shaped stone is a giant challenge. Without metal tools or wheels, it seems like it could not happen. So when new findings came out in 2024, claiming to reveal why these stones are there, the world held its breath. The breakthrough came from a team that made a digital twin of the monument. They captured every groove and every mark down to fractions of a millimeter. They fed all this data into neural networks trained to recognize patterns in ancient building. What the computer vision found sent shockwaves through the team. The machine identified 5 different ways the stones were shaped. The first way used stone hammers, which makes sense for that time. But the second way shows something else. The computer found precise shaping that goes far beyond simple pounding. We are talking about curved surfaces that are almost perfect, across a span of over 6 feet. The precision is so high that it exceeds what experts expect from stone tools. The patterns match nothing else from that era in Britain. 0. This suggests either a technique we do not understand or planning that should not have existed for another 2,000 years. The stones hide a secret that challenges the very timeline of human history. It is not that simple, though, because the third technique discovered by the machine is even more baffling. Artificial intelligence revealed that Stonehenge was not just built to look good. It was engineered for sound. Experts have suspected this for a long time, but the 2024 analysis showed how deep the engineering goes. The computer found that the spacing and shape of the stones create something called constructive interference. This means sound waves bounce between the stones and get louder at specific levels. The machine made a digital model of what sounds would be like 4,500 years ago. The simulations showed that deep voices or drums would have echoed with incredible power. Achieving this was not an accident. The stones had to be placed with extreme precision. If you move one stone by just 3 feet, the sound properties change completely. The computer calculated that the chance of this happening by luck is less than 1 in 10,000. This means the builders knew about sound science that was not written down until 2,000 years later in ancient Greece. They knew how to make a rock circle act like a giant speaker. And that is putting it lightly. When the computer mapped the positions of the stones, it found that the layout follows math rules that predate known math by thousands of years. The machine found right triangles with sides in a 3:4:5 ratio. This is a famous rule from Pythagoras, but he lived 2,000 years after this was built. The computer found at least 7 of these math relationships in the layout. More disturbing is that the machine found evidence of the number pi. The circle size shows a relationship of 3.14:1. This is accurate to 99%. Ancient Egyptians and Babylonians were not even this close to the real value of pi back then. Somehow, people in ancient Britain were more accurate than the most advanced civilizations of the time. This mathematical perfection suggests the builders were far more advanced than modern history books allow. The terrifying truth machines found in England. Yeah, about that. The computer also looked at the stars and found something staggering. Everyone knows the stones point to the summer sun, but the artificial intelligence found that is just the start. When the machine looked at the night sky from 4,500 years ago, it found that Stonehenge tracks the 18.6-year lunar cycle. This is one of the hardest things in space to track. You have to watch the moon every single night for almost 20 years to understand it. 4 stones placed in a rectangle mark the edges of this cycle perfectly. This is knowledge that was lost until modern science found it again. The computer calculated that this accuracy could not be reached without decades of math and watching. But the machine found something even more weird. When it looked at the age of the stones, it found that the most perfect work is the oldest work. The stones from 2,500 years before the Common Era have the best joints and the most accurate math. Later work done hundreds of years later is much worse. The shaping is messy, and the math is wrong. This is the opposite of how humans usually learn. Usually, we get better at things over time. People built better pyramids as time went on, and Greeks built better temples. But at Stonehenge, the best work happened first, and then it got worse. It is as if the first builders had a high level of knowledge that the later people lost. They were trying to copy something they did not understand anymore. Basically, the site was built by people who already knew everything, not people who were learning. These ancient structures were not just monuments, but part of a global warning system. And get this, the machine also figured out how the stones were moved. The large sarsen stones came from 25 miles away, and the blue stones came from 150 miles away. The computer ran thousands of physics tests on how to move a 25-ton stone on logs. The tests showed a 92% chance of the stones falling or getting stuck on the rough ground. But the scans show no damage to the stones. They are perfect. This means the builders had a way to move them that protected the rocks completely. The blue stones are even more of a mystery. These rocks were not just picked from a nearby pile. The builders traveled across Wales to find specific stones with special qualities. Some experts think the blue stones were picked because they ring like a bell when hit. But the computer found that the blue stones also create small changes in magnetic fields. The area around the stones shows magnetic variations. Could the builders feel magnetic fields like birds do? If so, they picked these stones because they created a special environment. This raises a scary question about how they knew about magnetism. The machine also scanned the ground around the monument and found structures hidden under the dirt. There are at least 200 extra holes and pits forming patterns that you cannot see from the surface. Stonehenge was not just one circle. It was the middle of a huge landscape covering miles. The computer found that the whole area was reshaped by humans. This involved moving hundreds of thousands of tons of earth. The amount of work is crazy. It would take thousands of people working for decades just to fix the dirt before the stones even arrived. The final revelation about Stonehenge's true purpose changes everything about the future of humanity. Stonehenge is not what they told you. The old idea that Stonehenge was just a temple for the sun is starting to look far too simple. When we use the most powerful computers to look at the site today, we see a much more complicated and scary picture. This is not just a circle of heavy rocks. It is a giant machine built with perfect math, sound science, and a strange kind of energy that we are only starting to understand. The computer suggests that the builders chose the smaller blue stones for a very specific reason. These stones were brought from over 150 miles away, which is a huge distance for people who supposedly only had wooden carts. But these stones have a lot of special crystals inside them. Today, we use these same kinds of crystals in our watches and phones to keep them running. When you put these crystals under pressure, they create electricity. This means the entire site of Stonehenge might have been a giant ancient power plant. Some experts now have an even wilder theory. They believe the whole area of land around the stones works like a giant circuit board, just like the one inside your computer. The stones were placed in exact spots to catch natural energy moving through the ground. By using this energy, the people who built it might have been able to create a special field. This field could have been used to heal people, or it might have even changed how they saw time itself. Imagine standing in the middle of the circle and feeling the air buzz with power. The math used to place every single stone is so perfect that it could not be an accident. It shows that the builders knew things about the earth that we have completely forgotten. Another big mystery is how they actually move these rocks. Some of them weigh as much as several elephants. We used to think they just used thousands of people and long ropes, but that would have taken forever and been almost impossible on the hills. A new and wild theory is that they used sound. We know that certain loud noises can actually make small objects float. The stones are tuned like a giant musical instrument. If the builders sang or played drums in a very specific way, they might have made the rocks feel light as feathers. This would explain why the sound inside the circle is so strange, and why the stones seem to sing when the wind blows through them in a certain way. The computer also found that the stones track very scary patterns in the sky. Most people think Stonehenge is just a simple calendar for farming, but it is actually a giant warning system for big disasters. The stones track the tiny wobble of the earth as it spins like a top. This wobble tells us when the weather will change in a huge way, or when giant rocks from space might hit our planet. When we compare Stonehenge to other very old sites in places like Turkey, we see the same warnings. This suggests that people all over the world a long time ago shared a secret book of knowledge about how to stay alive. They knew that human memory is weak and that we forget things over thousands of years. So, they built a message out of the strongest thing they could find: giant rocks. Stonehenge was built to last for 10,000 years, so that the warning would still be there even after we forgot how to read the stars. But the biggest secret might be what is hiding under the grass. New scans of the ground show that there are huge tunnels and rooms deep underground that no one has ever opened. Only a tiny part of the site has actually been dug up by scientists. These hidden rooms might be ancient bunkers built to survive a giant fire or a flood. Some people think these rooms hold crystal hard drives that have all the history of the world written on them. We have always called these people primitive, because they used stone tools, but the computer shows they were actually masters of science. We might have the name Stone Age completely wrong. Instead of being the start of human history, Stonehenge might be the very end of a super smart culture that vanished. If the math in the stones is right, Stonehenge is a message for us today. It tells us that the world goes through cycles of danger, and we might be getting close to the next one. We need to stop thinking we're the smartest people to ever live and start listening to what these giant stones are trying to tell us before it is too late. If Stonehenge was actually a warning system for global disasters, are we ignoring a message that was meant for our time? Tell us what you think about these ancient machines in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe for more mysteries.